I think that was an interesting exchange from Vrabel, and I don't know what else jumped out to you there, Keefe, but he kind of volunteered early on. Karen asked him about his leadership, and Mike Reese wrote about this over the weekend in his Sunday notes. Vrabel has had him out front, meaning Drake Maye, in some of these drills leading, and, Vrabel kind of started wishy-washy on the leadership. He's like, well, he's in a unique position. He's 22. We're encouraging him. There's different versions on and off the field, meaning you can be a guy who's well-liked off the field and act a certain way off the field, but on the field, you got to be a leader. You're the quarterback. And he kind of backed away from that a little bit in a follow-up question. Rochi asked him, quarterback leadership and what goes into that. And he's like, well, they're all leaders. It's independent of the position, but we all know quarterback's more important. So Phil follows up with what you just heard there. And Vrabel called it a work in progress, which on some level makes sense. He's young. He's in his second year. He's 22 years old. But on another level, that sounds like something Vrabel wants more out of Drake Maye. And so I just find that to be interesting. It's not the end of the world. He's in his second year working on his leadership. I think a lot of guys are. But that's interesting for Vrabel to volunteer that.
Yeah, I think it's important with every team, clearly. I mean, every starting quarterback is a team captain, essentially. But also, this team doesn't seem to have a lot of leaders on offense, right? That seems to be a position. It's even more important when you don't have, the 10-year all-pro left tackle or a big voice who's a wide out or a tight end or running back. I don't think they really have that. So it's probably even more important for Drake Maye. And I think that is one of the unanswered questions on Drake Maye. We were talking about PFF had their tiers and they had Drake Maye ranked really low. And obviously they're talking about what they expect, kind of numbers wise and sort of more overall skill. But when you're looking at the total package of a quarterback, leadership is definitely thrown in there. And I don't think anybody has a great sense on whether he will or whether he won't be. I think that is something that's going to play. I honestly have more questions about that. I don't know than I do his arm strength, his ability to run, which is something that you can see. We're not in the locker room with him.
And let's face it. I mean, the early returns on leadership with Drake Maye aren't great. He won a game. So, I mean, that's kind of where you see it. Does the team buy in, and can you rally the team? That's the main way you see it, not to oversimplify quarterback wins as a stat or anything, but that'd be the most tangible way to see it.
Because, people like him. All right, that's a good sign. But people also like Mac. There was definitely
people love Mac.
Yeah. So it's not, they're not always the same thing.
No. You can be a well-liked teammate and a crappy leader.
Yeah.
Randy Moss is one of them. Randy Moss, bad leader. People loved him. Kyrie. People love Kyrie.
They did, to a fault.
These are all, we're not saying Drake Maye is
no.
I'm just saying you can be a well-liked teammate and a bad leader. Those two things exist. I'm not saying Maye's a bad leader. I'm saying the jury's out. But the early returns, I get why Vrabel wants to encourage him and get him to a point where he's more of a leader and not everybody's best friend, which would be refreshing if they did it.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know what else jumped out to you, Keefe. There's a lot of little stuff here. I'd say the Drake Maye stuff is the headliner.
Yeah.
Anything else specific jump out to you?
No, nothing crazy. It was not one where you're like, hey, where's Steph Diggs? Is he practicing?
Well,
that
he's
kind
here.
of thing. Yeah,
he's here. And we
saw
saw him, I think, and you tell me if you feel like this is orchestrated, but I saw a video of him walking onto the field with Josh McDaniels, which to me feels orchestrated, but maybe I'm just the bad person reading too much into it.
No, I think that's true. I think it might be the bad person thing because I think he, just from some of the camera shots, what they've been allowed to film, I feel like Diggs, because he's not going to do every single thing that all the other receivers are doing, he has been spending more time with McDaniels. Was it Todd Downing, the wideout coach?
Yep.
I think he's with those guys a little bit more because he might not do everything on the field. So more of the stuff he's doing is communicating with those guys.
I don't know. I got the feel or a whiff of,
let's walk out together.
See, everybody's on the same page, and here's Steph Diggs walking out with Josh McDaniels. That felt orchestrated to me. But
it
again,
might honestly just be as simple as all right, here's what you're cleared to do today, and here's what you're not.
Yeah, maybe. I just, I'm probably the bad person on this, but that's how I read it.
It's still the honeymoon period.
It is.
Diggs is back in the honeymoon period. It was a little rocky there for a second.
It was a rocky start to the honeymoon.
Back in the honeymoon.
As it would be on a boat with a million girls. That would be a rocky start to anybody's honeymoon.
That's true.
But there you go. So I thought that was interesting.
Because he was asked about the receiver position. It was basically
Well, with Diggs, just to back it up, because he did have an interesting comment about the receiver position. He said, Diggs has good energy, and we like where everything is. He's working hard in his rehab. But he did acknowledge what I think we all know. He is not fully cleared yet. That doesn't mean he hasn't passed a physical. I think the jury's out on that. Giardi seemed to think he was reporting towards he has not been fully cleared for everything. Rap Sheet said very definitively he's passed his physical last week. But Vrabel said today there are certain drills he'll be out there, certain drills where he won't. So he's clearly, whether he's passed the physical or not, he's not fully cleared. He went on to talk about the wide receiver room, as you were just suggesting, and that was awfully lukewarm. Which, how could you not be? We found out over the weekend they were trying to trade for Rashad Bateman, and maybe they're in on Terry McLaurin, and they were certainly in on Chris Godwin, et cetera, et cetera. But he said guys are stepping up and taking advantage of opportunities, like Diggs. Not everybody's out there right now.
Yeah.
He says every day they show us something.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of doing it consistently. So that's about the most faint praise you can have for that crummy wide receiver.
Well, it's funny because I think it was earlier today, Mike Reese was just talking about the schedule for the day, and he had a couple of his notes, and he was saying one of the top storylines in his eyes is the backup wide receiver competition, which I would argue isn't even the starting wide receiver competition. Like, I don't think anybody should be guaranteed a thing, and maybe that's also what he kind of meant, but I look at that group where, all right, if Steph Diggs is cleared and is full go, great, he's number one. What's 2 through 7? I bet if you ask 5 people 2 through 7 to rank them, everybody would have a different 2 through 7.
All right, if Diggs is 1, who is? Yeah,
who's even
question.
2?
Who is 2?
7.
Who's 2? Is it? Do you go like Mac Hollins because you sort of know what it is? Do you go Kyle Williams because it's a high draft pick? But we've seen draft picks.
Wishful thinking, I would go Kyle Williams.
Is
but
it Kendrick Bourne because he was good with McDaniels?
No. So I think,
is it Booty?
I think Bourne will be productive when Diggs isn't out there. The second Diggs gets out there, I think Bourne fades into the background. It's not Douglas. It's not Booty. I hope for either of those.
So I think like if Diggs,
my answer would be Hollins or hopefully Williams. Those would be my answers. Yeah,
right. And then there's a question there about Pop Douglas. You obviously have 2 guys that nobody would pick in Polk and Baker.
By the way, the Pop Douglas answer I thought was lukewarm too.
Yeah.
He's like, well, I like him off the field. That was how he started it. And then he went into kind of complimenting him on the field, but he started with like, well, he's a good person off the field.
Yeah, I'd rather be a good player and like a so-so guy.
Yeah, so I thought that was an incredibly lukewarm
What about
answer.
Efton Chisholm? Could he crack that top 5?
Look, our guy EC3 is going to be on the roster.
EC3?
I think we all know that. One other thing I don't like, and I guess I knew this when the Patriots released their email, but hearing Vrabel talk about it, I didn't love it. He was asked why they shortened minicamp could be 3 days. You could practice on Wednesday. And often Bill didn't. Mayo gave him like a community day in the middle of minicamp last year. I don't like that Vrabel is dropping Wednesday, period. I don't like that anyway.
Yeah.
And I don't like that he's doing it before they've even hit the field. Like, why don't you see how they do on the field Monday, Tuesday, and then if you feel like they did everything, reward it. Exactly.
Yeah,
don't
strange.
tell them now they have Wednesday off. I don't like that.
Well, especially remember at the beginning of this when it was like OTAs or whatever, and they said new coaches were allowed to start early,
and they did this year.
They did
with Mayo.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So it's like it's kind of surprising because it felt like he was going to maximize all the time they could possibly have on the field. That's what it felt like before.
Right.
But maybe now,
and we complimented them for that.
Yeah,
We're like,
I know.
Hey, I like
good.
that they're working out there early this year. They weren't last year. Now this kind of is the other direction, which I don't like.
A little surprising.
We feel consistent on this. Vrabel,
we are nothing but.
Vrabel does not.
Yeah.
So I like that. Curran, we're going to talk to Curran tomorrow. We got to finalize a time given some of the shifting OTA schedules. So it might not be high noon tomorrow. We're going to talk to Curran tomorrow. He seemed interested in asking about the new hire in the analytics department, I think is what he was driving at. We talked about this briefly last week. Pats have a new analytics guy. He was asking about the Patriots and their use of analytics. So maybe we can delve into that
clearly
with Curran.
Into it, like analytics. I think he is. I don't think.
He said you can't base every decision on numbers, but he says it's important to help you ask questions, follow up, and make a sound decision.
Yeah, so I guess my point would be my sort of view of it would be you look at Mike Vrabel, you're like, former player, former linebacker turned coach.
He's
like
got
kind of
no
like a
time
badass.
for
He's
these dweebs.
He's looking at that.
These pencil neck geeks.
Yeah, he's going to look at it. But you do hope, like with all these guys, I hope that they use it. But then also, like, what is your feel on the sideline? And feel free to go against it. Like, I hope it's not just like everything that they tell him to do, he does.